Well, hi there. As a leadership coach and trainer, my job is to stay current on leadership topics. So what I've just done is I've just finished reading a book that was published in 2022, and I have synthesized the concepts that I think are relatable, usable, and I am going to share them with you now. So it's kind of like a Cliff Notes, or like you're subscribing to Blinkist in terms of this book. So I'd love to share with you what I learned, what stood out to me, and how to apply. So first of all, here's the book, Unreasonable Hospitality, The Remarkable Power of Giving People More Than They Expect. I really loved it. Here's the basic premise. Well, first of all, I want to share there's lots of quotable stuff within this book. I've also put bite-sized things onto each screen. So if you want to take notes or utilize any of this, please feel free. So first of all, Will Guidara, he was the owner of, he was a co-owner of the legendary restaurant 11 Madison Park that had 3 Michelin stars. And apparently it was the tire company Michelin that years ago said, we want to sell more tires, so we're going to create this 3 rating system. And it was about how much you should go out of your way or make a special trip to go visit this restaurant. So this restaurant had 3 stars. It was really, it's been world class. And so his story comes from that, or the book that he wrote. There's another book called Setting the Table by Danny Myers that he references and he learned under. That's probably also another recommendation, but I haven't read it. So the chapter titles, a lot of them are what they subscribe to as their culture. They also talk about how the word cult is short for culture, which I found to be interesting. A few concepts that came up over and over again. One was that service is black and white and hospitality is color. I loved that concept. A lot of the organizations that I work with are service industries. They are about healthcare, they're about education, public transportation, they're social agencies, they're public servants. And so it made me really think about the concept of anybody can do service, but the how, it's the how, that's the hospitality. Also, they have a phrase in there that is choose the charitable assumption, which I am often found saying assume positive intent, but I feel like that's a great way to say that. So here are a few things that are takeaways. So the first concept that really stood out to me was people will never forget how you made them feel. We know this, and this is a great reminder. I often say that people may forget the lyrics, but they remember the melody. I think that's important for us to remember, that if we're going to do public speaking or we're going to run a meeting within a team or any of those kinds of things, it's not necessarily the very specifics of what happened. It's the feeling. Here's an activity. The second part, the underneath here, are activities that I'd recommend based on what I learned in the book. What about if you tried this at your next staff meeting? Have each person comment to those on the left and the right of them, sitting on either side, so I would say how I want to make each person feel when I'm interacting. It might be the exact same for each person, but it might be, well, for you, I always want to be helpful, be a willing, helpful person. For you, I want to always be honest yet kind. And then to say, and if I'm not that way with you, then I'm out of integrity with myself. Will you tell me? That's an idea of something you could try with your team. Then another concept was about being restaurant smart versus being corporate smart. And I loved this because he, in his history of working in the restaurant industry, had seen both sides, working like in the trenches, in the dining room, in the restaurant, right? That was his restaurant perspective. His corporate perspective was when he would like learn how to do the books, the behind the scenes, the accounting, things like that. And so the idea is that how can we see things from 2 perspectives? And I love this. I just came up with this idea of, could you ask your team even to write about what are the 2 viewpoints we want to always be considering when we're making decisions? It's common that I work with organizations that feel like the leaders put their department or their program or their team first and the whole agency or organization second. So this would be a great way to get out of the siloing, saying, how can we in all of our decisions consider both the program and also the organization. Now, here's another one, the rule of 95-5. I don't know if they made this up or if they took this from somewhere, but I really love it. How I see this is they're saying 95% of the time when we're making decisions, we're figuring out direction to go forward, be logical, be strategic, think about what's smart for the business. But 5% of the time, that's the magic. That's my word. I don't think they use that word in there. It's maybe the passion, it's throwing caution to the wind. Maybe it's about heart, maybe it's fun factor. An example they used was about getting these really expensive, tiny, beautifully blue gelato spoons that were intended to enhance the customer experience and to just delight. It wasn't a smart money decision. The metric was something else. I've also heard recently a bit about the concept of creativity and control. My business coach, Scott Novus, he often is found saying creativity craves chaos and constraints. So here it's really talking about both creativity and control are necessary. So I wonder if you would want to sit and think, what do I want to put the 5% into? Where do I want to have pizzazz? Then I think we've just got 9 of these that I'm sharing with you. So the next one is making it cool to care. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think back to the Spanish class that I had in high school, it was not cool to trill the R, meaning doing good Spanish pronunciation. It was like, it was not cool to care, right? If you were the student that was like, oh, I know the answer, pick on me. That was not the cool way to be in high school. So I'm wondering how in your workplace, how can you make it cool to care about particular things that you care about? Like, for example, here, you could ask your team, how can we make it cool for us to care about things that are often left to the leadership of an organization? Can you get everybody to care? Culture, anti-gossip policy, innovation, speaking up, asking hard questions, any of that kind of thing. What do you want people to think it's cool to care about, regardless of rank or role? Now, this one is the most provocative one. Learn their tough love language. When I say provocative, I mean, I have never seen this in another leadership book that I have read. And so it's really interesting. And I get it. So he shares a story about how one of the managers, supervisors, maybe it was the person who ran the kitchen, maybe the head chef, was saying, I'm not getting through to this person. He keeps undermining other new managers, and I've had enough. I've talked with him and he's just not getting it. And so Will said, have you tried yelling at him? And right, our books these days doesn't seem to offer that up. So what they were getting at is that company culture is so important, but everything can't be 100% sweetness and light, they say. They also quote someone who says, one size fits one, which I kind of like that. So the idea with this is what's that individual person receptive to? Some people are receptive to thunder. Me, I would not be receptive to that. I need a much gentler, softer, kinder approach. So if you think some people won't get it, they recommend staying calm, no raging, no losing control, no humiliation. It's not being emotional, but it is elevating your tone. Instead of doing the like, hey, I want you to know that your job is in jeopardy if this happens again, to do it with a bit more passion and having a raised voice, even using an ultimatum, like you need to decide right now if you're going to change, and make that loud. They say, he was saying that some people just won't get it. If you don't have a little thunder, they won't believe you're serious. So with that, here's the idea. You want to write, is there a direct report? Somebody who reports to you, right? Who you want to have behavior change, and you've been trying ceaselessly without impact. Are your efforts too easygoing? What might you change? Something to think about. Okay, so just a few more. So here's the idea of slowing down to speed up. I've heard this here. I've heard this also from my favorite coach that I follow, who has a podcast and a book. His name is Rich Litvin. He's often talking about that. So The concept is you can't pour from an empty cup. They decided to do things that weren't about speed, growth, and change at times. For example, they would change the menu less frequently just to give them some breathing room. They use that example that we've heard 1,000 times of put your own oxygen mask on first. So can we do less and do it well? They are in the relationship business. Also in my work, I'm in the relationship business. So how can we work to slow down so that it's actually, what they're saying here is then it's more strategic. You're getting better results. It's more mission driven. Can you each week have scheduled time to evaluate and strategize what to start doing, what to stop doing, and to continue doing, instead of just making great time going in the wrong direction? Then we've got the Deep Breathing Club, which they abbreviate as the DBC. So they tell a story about how in this organization that was trying to reduce the needed medication for people, they said 3 breaths first before responding, before engaging. We've heard that before in terms of how to respond to email or whatever, you know, put it in jail for 24 hours or whatever before you respond. They said 3 breaths instead of a meltdown. But they figured out a way to help each other. We all know it's not helpful almost every time if we say to somebody else, hey, just calm down. So what they would do instead to give feedback, but compassionately to each other, is they would just say DBC. It was this idea of I see you and we're in this together. Instead of preachy, judgmental, advicey, I see you and we're in this together, they just say DBC. So here's a question for you. What code word might we have to remind each other how we want to show up? And quite frankly, how do we want to show up collectively? Is there a way to give compassionate feedback that doesn't involve explanation, description, anything like that? Connected but different is this concept of touch the lapel. So they would really like physically touch their lapel. This was an action that they did, which was a code for I need help. So you see how the other one was giving feedback to someone else and the other one was I need help, right? They'd touch the lapel for whatever reason. You know, if you've been talking to an intense customer, or you're exhausted, or you're just about to lose it, or you're just about to cry, whatever, right? Like I need help. So this is different because it's self-initiated. So I wonder, is there a way that you can talk to your team? First, do we ask each other for help? Many people, especially high up in the food chain that I work with, will say, I'm really bad at asking for help. So if the answer is yes, or if the answer is no, can you talk about what could we all agree to in regards to asking for help? Like, what do we want to ask for help about? I just gave a few examples about, right? If you're feeling attacked and you need help, whatever it might be, but what do we want help about? And what could a code action be to request it, right? It could be pulling the ear. It could be giving a finger on your chin, putting a finger on your chin, something like that, but something that's saying, I need help. So if anyone else sees that when in a meeting, they come to help. So then we've just got, I think this is the last one, earning informality, and then be present. We've heard a lot about be present, and it's one of the hardest things. But the earning informality is this idea of, can we be formal first? My training, my background is one of the primarily schools of thought is teaching. I have a teaching credential, a master's degree in education. In the teaching world, there is this concept of it's easier to lighten up than tighten up, right? You can imagine that in the classroom. Be strict at first and then ease up if things seem like you want to go that direction. So that's what it's talking about here. And then the other part is about being present. And they talk about the difference between being attentive and paying attention. They say that really paying attention is really providing hospitality. That's what being present looks like. So I'm wondering if with these two, you might want to ask your team to share within the first month of a new hire starting, what 10 That's a lot. 10 policies or procedures do you want them to adhere to? Which ones do you want them to really get? There are ones that are more important to you, that are more important to your team or your organization than others. Can you be clear about, like, this is really what we do around here? And then also, secondly, and kind of in a different vein, write and share with your team. Can you describe a time within the last week when you were paying the most attention? We all know that our attention waxes and wanes depending on who's talking, how long they've been talking, what time of day it is, how interesting they are to listen to, if we're interested in the topic, all those kinds of things. So then if we can get clear on what are the factors that set us up for success and discuss that as a team, that is what a strong group of leaders can be talking about. Now, I would love for you to take all of these and implement, and let me know. I didn't even tell you who I am. My name is Julie Lancaster, and I'm the owner of Lancaster Leadership. If you would like a quick list just to see, here's the list. You can screenshot this. Here's what we've been talking about. I encourage you on your leadership journey, and good luck out there. Thank you for spending time with me. Have a great day.